Hello, this is Andrea again, and I am just happy to be with you to go all the way from the great King Solomon to the exile. You've probably heard of the exile when the people were sent off to another country where they had never lived before. So, this great story starts with Rehoboam, who was the son of Solomon. Rehoboam was, I guess, what you'd call a spoiled person. He only listened to people who agreed with him. And because of his mismanagement, the kingdom split apart. There were 10 tribes in the north that came to be called Israel, and 2 tribes in the south, Judah and Benjamin, and that came to be called Judah. So the kingdom of the north was the first 10 tribes, and the kingdom of the south was Judah and Benjamin. So the people from the north came to King Rehoboam and they said, your father, King Solomon, was kind of rough on us and he made us work and do things we didn't want to do. We hope that you will treat us better. So King Rehoboam, who wasn't very wise, said, no, if my father was rough on you, I'll be 10 times as rough. If my father beat you with whips, then I'll beat you with scorpions. Of course, he wasn't going to beat anybody with scorpions, but that's what he said. So the people from the north, they suddenly said, hey, we're out of here. We don't want to be part of your kingdom anymore. And that's what split the kingdom between north and south. Now, if you think of the south as Judah and Benjamin with its main capital of Jerusalem, and then give yourself a little middle part, which is Samaria, which is where the Good Samaritan came from, and then go way up north. And when you go way up north, you find Galilee. And near the Galilee, in towns like Nazareth, which you've heard of, Nain, which you've heard of, Capernaum, then there were people who were very, very faithful to religion of God as it was presented in the south in Jerusalem. And they would come down to Jerusalem. So you find that Joseph and Mary and their people came down to Jerusalem for the Passover. So I hoped that I could get to talk about the kings of Israel, but they were mostly pretty bad news, and we'll just name 5 of them: Jeroboam, Baasha, Ahab, Jehoahaz, and Joash. There was another Joash that we'll hear more about, who was from Judah. But there's a good story about Ahab. He was talking to Isaiah, and Isaiah said, ask the Lord for a sign. And Ahab said, oh, no, I'm not going to ask the Lord for a sign, because I'm not going to tempt the Lord and ask him for a sign. And Isaiah said, do you have to weary people only? Do you also have to weary God? That you're making everybody tired of the way you behave, and even God is getting tired of listening to you. So he said, so God himself is going to give you a sign, and this is the sign. Behold, a virgin will conceive and bear a son and call his name Emmanuel. Well, that's one of the most important lessons that we read during Advent, that the virgin will conceive and bear a son and call his name Emmanuel. One of our most important verses in the whole Bible. And to think that Isaiah said that to Ahab just when he wouldn't ask for a sign. So the Bible is full of surprises. But let's go to Judah. Judah in the south is going to be our main focus, because that's where the worship of God was. They tried to keep it very pure, depending on who was the king and depending on who were the priests. So here's some good kings that came after Rehoboam. Abijah, Asa removed all the idols, and then Jehoshaphat sent teachers to all the villages to teach people about the worship of God. They were followed by 2 bad kings, Jehoram and Ahaziah. Then we have 4 good kings, starting with 7-year-old Joash. Now imagine being king of Judah when you're only 7 years old. Well, he listened to some really good advice and he did a good job. But turned out he listened to some bad advice as he got older. Then there were 3 more good kings, Amaziah, Uzziah, and Jotham. Then Ahaz came along and he was a bad king. Now, what do we mean by bad kings? That means that they started worshiping idols. They started teaching other people to worship idols. and they were not taking care of the widows and the orphans and justice in their community. But Hezekiah was a good king. He came along next, and he invited all of Israel, those 10 tribes that we talked about, to come to the Passover in Jerusalem, and they had Passover for a whole month. So because of Hezekiah's prayers, the angel of the Lord defeated the Assyrian army that was pretty much parked right outside the gates of Jerusalem. But Israel, the 10 tribes of the north, pretty much fell to the Assyrians and were never quite the same again. There was there was Samaria that I talked about, and then there was Galilee in the north, where some people were still trying to be good disciples of God. And Jesus grew up in the north, in the area of Galilee. Then we have 2 bad kings. Manasseh was a pretty bad king, but he was captured by the Babylonians and taken to Babylon for a while. And during that time, he had time to think, and he became a good king. He came back, he converted back to the true religion of God. Then Amon was a bad king. Now, here's how I know that. My grandfather's name was Thomas Amon Short. Isn't that a funny last name, Short? Thomas Amon Short. And I heard somebody ask him, what's your middle name? He said, Amon. They said, what's the A for? Amon, a wicked king. I said, oh, well, I didn't know my grandfather was named after a wicked king. My other grandfather was named after a good guy who was named John Wesley. Anyway, enough about my grandfathers. So Amon was one of the bad kings. Jehoahaz made a deal with Egypt, and he was taken to Egypt for a while as a hostage. Then these 3 kings, next kings, were taken to Babylon. Jehoiakim, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah. So Zedekiah was actually the very last king in the house of Judah. Judah as a kingdom disappeared at that time. The house of God was burned. The walls were torn down. The palaces were all burned. And many, many people were taken to Babylon. My favorite prophet Jeremiah is part of that story, but I think Jeremiah deserves his own video because Jeremiah had such a fascinating life and he was so important. So we're going to soon hear about Jeremiah, but I want to show you in 2 different Bibles how Chronicles ends. Now there's 2 books called Chronicles, First Chronicles and Second Chronicles. Chronicles just means like history books. So I've got these 2 books right over here, and I'm going to show you the Bibles and show you how Chronicles ends. Please wait for me. I'm back, and here is a Catholic Bible, which is our New American Bible. It's a Catholic Bible, and we're going to see how Chronicles ends in the Catholic Bible. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that means the very first year that Cyrus was king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by, who else? Jeremiah, the Lord inspired King Cyrus of Persia to issue this proclamation throughout his kingdom, both by word of mouth and in writing. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth the Lord, the God of heaven, has given to me, Cyrus, and he has also charged me to build him a house in, where? Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever among you belongs to any part of this people, let him go up to Jerusalem, and may his God be with him. So what a wonderful opportunity that the people who had been moved out of Jerusalem and into Babylon were able to go back up during the time of King Cyrus. And this is called the Tanakh, the Jewish Study Bible. I'm afraid that because I'm on selfie mode, everything's backwards. But it's the Jewish Study Bible, and it's called the Tanakh. And I'm going to read the same paragraph from the Jewish Study Bible. And in the first year, King Cyrus of Persia, when the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah was fulfilled many years earlier, the Lord roused the spirit of King Cyrus of Persia to issue a proclamation throughout his realm by word of mouth and in writing as follows. Thus says King Cyrus of Persia, the Lord God of heaven has given me all the kingdoms of the earth and has charged me with building him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Any one of you of all his people, the Lord his God be with him, and let him go up. And that is the end of Chronicles in the Jewish Bible. And when you turn the page, that's the end of their Bible. So that's the way the Jewish Bible ends, is that after the exile to Babylon, King Cyrus allowed the people to go back and rebuild Jerusalem. So a very happy ending to a very long, long series of difficulties. We're going to find out more about the Babylonian exile when we talk about Jeremiah. And I'm so happy that you joined me today in my house. Someday we'll be back in our churches and back in our schools, and we'll say, wow, 2020 sure had a lot of big surprises. But God is full of surprises for us, and we have to be thankful for everything that he gives us day by day.